In a post-apocalyptic world where a virus has turned a third of the population into zombies, a group of tourists must survive while trying to escape from an island overrun with zombies. Today we're going to recap the story of the 2015 movie, The Resort. 10 years ago, humanity faced the worst epidemic the world has ever seen, caused by a virus that wipes people out and then brings them back to life. Since then, a brutal war has broken out between the perished and the living, with those who have returned attacking their own friends and family. In a short period of time, the virus was able to wipe out 2 million people, and the Brimstone Protocol was humanity's salvation. Through it, governments have managed to control the epidemic and eliminate zombies from society. The only place on the planet where these creatures still exist is on an isolated island known as Resort. Visitors are allowed in and, after paying a fee of a few $1,000s, they can have fun shooting zombies. The woman behind this venture is Valerie Wilton, who became known in the media for being the CEO of Resort. Her island divides opinion, and, while some agree that Resort is an excellent business that helps to grow the economy, others accuse the entrepreneur of violating human rights. Melanie is one of the victims who survived the pandemic, but to this day has not been able to overcome the traumas she experienced at the time. So, to help her treat this disorder, Louis, her fiancé, decides to take her to Resort. This will give her the chance to face her greatest fears and move on. During the war, Melanie lost her father, and every night she has nightmares about it. When the day of the voyage arrives, the woman walks apprehensively through the ship, but Louis is by her side to support his fiancé. Before leaving, Melanie meets a young woman who has been rescued by an NGO called Hope for You, responsible for assisting post-apocalypse refugees. The couple will have a long journey across the ocean together with dozens of other people who are also on their way to the island. Among them are some investors who have plans to create a new resort, and a young woman called Sadie, who was recently jilted at the altar by her fiancé and is traveling to a place where she can vent all her anger. After a few hours of travel, the group finally arrives at the famous island and is greeted by a group of officials. After refreshing themselves with expensive drinks, visitors get into the vehicles and are taken to the facilities. Once there, they meet Isabel, and the woman introduces the new guests to the mansion. Then each of them is guided to their room, where they will spend the next few days, and, after putting their bags away, Melanie decides to walk down to the pool. That afternoon, all the visitors are taken to the training room to practice some shooting and hone their skills with firearms. As her fiancé is a former army soldier, Melanie doesn't need the help of an instructor and relies on Louis to teach her how to handle a pistol. Hours later, everyone gathers outside the mansion for a small welcome party and finally gets to meet Valerie Wilton. During the CEO's speech, Sadie sneaks out of the party and breaks into one of the mansion's rooms. Meanwhile, the first zombie is introduced to the guests, and Valerie says that Resort was built to be a place of celebration, where guests can celebrate the end of the apocalypse. At that moment, Sadie is downloading some files in the control room and puts the flash drive in her bag, but is caught by Archer, who finds it strange that the young woman has sneaked out of the mansion. The next morning, while walking around the grounds of the facility, Melanie sees an employee leading the zombie introduced the night before on a leash. For some reason, this scene makes the young woman uncomfortable, as she feels bad knowing that these once human creatures are being treated in this way. That day, the group goes out zombie hunting for the first time, and everyone is introduced to their field guides. Tom Nevins is one of the guides and says that the visitors will have a lot of fun that weekend. From the control room, Valerie monitors all the movements of her guests, and, as soon as the vehicles leave the garage, the gates of the mansion close again, turning the place into an impenetrable fortress. Suddenly, the alarm goes off for no apparent reason, so Salva just deactivates the sirens and everyone goes about their business. After a few minutes of traveling, the visitors find a fence that separates the park and prevents the zombies from invading the safety zone. At this point, Tom explains that when they cross that fence, they will be on their own and their lives will be in danger at all times. If they are bitten, there is nothing that can be done to save them and stop them turning into zombies, so if this happens, the victim will have to be sacrificed. Even before arriving on the island, guests already knew all the risks they would be taking, so they are not alarmed to hear this. Still inside the vehicle, Valerie spots other guests shooting at the zombies, and Sadie takes the opportunity to film them. The adventure of the group of investors begins in the ruins of an ancient city, where they have to eliminate some zombies who are trapped, preventing them from doing any harm. The tendency is for the level of difficulty of the battle to increase as they get used to fighting the zombies, so the group joins forces to walk around the site accompanied by their instructor in the hope of encountering new monsters along the way. A few kilometers away, Louis, his fiancé, and the rest of his team are preparing for their first battle, and Melanie is terrified to see hundreds of free zombies occupying a large area of the island. Jack and Alfie are the first to pick up their guns and start shooting with great enthusiasm, as they have been waiting for this moment for a long time. Lewis then joins them and manages to hit the monsters in the head, knowing that this is the only way to eliminate them. When it's Melanie's turn to fire her first shot, she gives up on eliminating her target when she sees the zombie's destroyed face and takes pity on it. However, her mercy is to no avail, as Archer quickly grabs a rifle and eliminates the creature. With each shot, the man hits the skull of one of the zombies and impresses everyone with his great skill in battle. After unloading most of their ammunition on those monsters, the visitors have to set up camp for the night in the forest, and Archer becomes even more suspicious of Sadie's strange behavior. After everything she's seen since arriving on the island, Melanie begins to think that her trip to resort was a bad idea, as she hasn't even managed to shoot a zombie yet. In her office, Valerie receives a visit from Salva and discovers that resort was hacked the night before, in which hundreds of files were stolen. The technicians have not yet been able to find out who was responsible for the invasion, as they are too busy trying to regain control of all the island's automations. While the security team tries to prevent a tragedy from happening, the handcuffs and collars that were keeping the zombies immobile open, as do the gates that were keeping the monsters out of the mansion. That night, while returning to their vehicle to find a safe place to camp, the group of investors is attacked by zombies, and so are the employees who are working inside the mansion. In the midst of the invasion, Isabel tries to escape, but is chased by the creatures and eaten alive. Minutes later, the creatures reach the control room and attack the employees, but Valerie manages to escape and hide so as not to meet the same end as her employees. While everyone is asleep in the camp, Melanie keeps watch and notices that Sadie is still awake. It's still an hour before her shift, but she says she can't sleep. So Melanie joins her for a beer and a chat, without even realizing the chaos that is happening in the facility. Just then, a zombie approaches and Melanie runs to wake up the rest of the group. Meanwhile, Sadie aims her gun at the creature, but can't get a shot off. Seeing this situation, Archer decides to intervene and eliminates the monster with a shot to the head. When he realizes what has happened, Tom is shocked, because he knows that no zombie should ever get so close to the visitors. Naively, Lewis asks why the man is impressed, since they are inside the fence. Tom then reveals that there are hidden fences all over the island, because if any guests were bitten, the resort would risk being closed down. Immediately, the guide turns up the lights on the vehicle's lanterns so that he can see what is happening around him, and the group despairs when they realize that they are surrounded by the zombies. Archer quickly starts shooting and is accompanied by the other men on the team. Meanwhile, Sadie and Melanie go into hiding, and Tom tries to contact headquarters for help, but no one answers his call. While trying to take shelter inside a tent, Melanie is attacked and about to be bitten when Sadie appears and pushes the zombie away. As they are at a disadvantage in that battle, the visitors decide to climb into the vehicle to avoid being taken by surprise by the enemies, but Alfie ends up being bitten while trying to climb in and is eliminated along with the monsters that attacked him. Afraid of being surprised by a new horde of zombies, the group stays on top of the car until dawn, and early on Tom is informed that the Brimstone protocol has been activated. In a few hours, the entire island will be destroyed in a huge explosion, and they must leave it before that happens if they want to survive. As the vehicles they used to get around the island have stopped working, the solution is to walk to the port, as a ship will leave from there half an hour before the explosion. After saying goodbye to his best friend, Jack accompanies the team on their way to the beach, as he knows there is nothing more that can be done for Alfie. There are less than 5 hours until the explosion, and they're not even halfway there. Being more experienced in dealing with zombies, Archer takes the lead, and, while following him, Jack suffers an attempted attack. Luckily, Tom manages to eliminate the zombie before the young man is injured, and, when he examines the body, he realizes that it was Mike, one of his coworkers. Terrified, the man wonders how the situation could have reached such a dangerous level, given that the island's security systems are extremely advanced. Then Jack comes to the conclusion that a hacker is behind it all and could be anywhere on the planet at that moment. After a few more minutes of walking, the group finds the vehicle that was transporting the investors, and Archer tries to keep the zombies at bay while his companions go through the gate. Melanie is one of the first people to reach the other side and almost falls victim to a fatal bite. However, seeing the young woman in danger, Sadie decides to take action and blows the creature's brains out. When everyone is safe on the other side of the gate, Tom is attacked and ends up being infected. Then, when Archer eliminates the zombie, Lewis shoots his partner, and Melanie is furious with him. Along the way, she refuses to talk to her fiancé, and Archer decides to unmask Sadie in front of everyone. He tells her that he saw her breaking into the mansion the night before and trying to hide from the security guards. He then asks her why she ended up on that island. Realizing there's no point in lying, Sadie says she's only downloaded some files that can be used to close down resort. The woman is a member of an activist group that defends the rights of the zombies and went there to find the evidence needed to stop Valerie from continuing to promote entertainment at the expense of zombies on the island. At that moment, The woman realizes that she has been tricked, as Jack claims that the USB drive she received from her fellow activists was infected with a virus that allowed them to take over all of Resort's control systems. When she realizes what she has done, Sadie feels guilty for the eliminations of all the people who worked there and even the visitors. Despite being extremely disappointed in her friend, Melanie says she won't abandon her, and the group continues on their way until they reach an abandoned town. As they walk around the site, they hear some grunts and try to hide among the bodies that are lying on the ground, all torn apart. Slowly, they move from one corner of the house to the other, very carefully so as not to make noise and attract the attention of their enemies. When new monsters enter the building, the team is forced to split into two groups, and Sadie accompanies Jack to the back so that they can both reunite with their companions. However, as they race to get there, the young woman is attacked and manages to eliminate the zombie in time. Shaken by all the eliminations he witnessed that day, Jack is in shock and can barely move, but Sadie stays by his side and ends up being injured trying to save him. During the battle against a zombie, Sadie takes a bite out of her hand and gives the USB drive to Jack, as she will no longer be able to use it. While the young man flees, the young woman stays behind to feed the creatures and buy time for the rest of the group to escape. At that moment, Jack meets up with his companions again and, just barely, they all manage to get to safety. With less than an hour to go before the explosion, they find the underground path that will take them to the docks, but the steel door is locked, so the quartet must find an alternative route and search the facility for a new passage. As they walk through the darkness, they come across a place full of cages and wonder what they are for. Suddenly, the grunts of the zombies start getting closer and the tourists have to run until they reach a small, apparently empty room. When the noise is interrupted, a zombie falls from the ceiling and grabs Jack's neck. Before the monster could attack anyone else, Archer eliminates it and Melanie tries to reassure her wounded friend. In an attempt to spare the young woman further suffering, Archer asks her to turn her back and shoots the young man in the head. Then the last three survivors arrive in a room very similar to an infirmary and find some suitcases lying around. They continue walking until they come across several NGO tents providing aid to refugees and soon discover that Hope for You belongs to Valerie. The woman founded the charity organization as a strategy to attract refugees and take them to Resort, where they were turned into zombies. Just then, the young woman Melanie met at the airport appears, along with a horde of hungry zombies who start chasing them. Immediately, the trio must return to the room and are surrounded, as the two exits are blocked by the zombies. Realizing that his chances of survival have drastically decreased, Lewis decides to abandon his fiancée and scales the ceiling with the help of a chain while Archer and Melanie hold the door. Even though he knows there will be no escape, Archer orders Melanie to go after Lewis and says he will hold out as long as possible so that the young woman has time to escape. Then, heartbroken, Melanie decides to follow her friend's orders and manages to escape through the roof. Now that she's alone, she has to be even more cautious when walking around the facility and picks up a gun she finds along the way to defend herself. While hiding, she meets her cowardly fiancé again and discovers that he has been bitten. However, instead of eliminating him, Melanie hands over the gun so that Lewis can take his own life, because she doesn't want to be responsible for it. After getting her pistol back, Melanie continues to run aimlessly and is once again surrounded. This time, however, she is saved by Valerie, who has been hiding in her office all this time. The woman wants to create a distraction so that she can get to the emergency exit and asks Melanie to hand over her gun. However, as she knows that Valerie can't be trusted, the young woman refuses and the two start a duel. The noise of the fight attracts the attention of the zombies and Valerie is devoured by her own employees as she tries to escape. Immediately, Melanie takes advantage of this distraction to escape and runs towards the beach, knowing that the Brimstone protocol has just been activated. Along the way, she is chased by hundreds of monsters, but she never gives up on her goal. Even though she's exhausted, Melanie keeps running to the beach and sees the warplanes coming to bomb the island. Just as she was about to be hit by the explosions, the young woman reaches the ocean and manages to jump into the water. It isn't long before a helicopter finds her and she is rescued. 3 weeks later, the incident that incinerated the resort is still being discussed in the media and the journalist tells us that Melanie wasn't the only survivor, as Archer also managed to escape alive. The young woman handed the authorities a USB drive containing top-secret files that were downloaded from the island's computers and which prove that the NGO Hope for You was involved in all the crimes linked to Resort. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.